The Galactic Council's emergency chamber had never felt so cold. The massive crystalline dome, usually gleaming with the light of 1,000 stars, now pulsed with an ominous red glow. Emergency beacons flashed across curved walls as representatives from over 300 species huddled in their environmental pods, their fear palpable even through their protective barriers. High Chancellor Vexterra, her bioluminescent tendrils dimmed with worry, floated at the center of the chamber. A holographic display before her showed another system going dark, the 15th this cycle. The crystalline entity they called the Horizon's End had devoured yet another civilization. "The Meridian Empire has fallen," she announced, her translator struggling to maintain composure. Their quantum arrays and gravitational weapons proved useless. The entity, it simply absorbed their energy and grew stronger. The chamber erupted in panic. Species that had evolved over millions of years to maintain perfect emotional control now succumbed to primal fear. The Horizon's End defied everything they understood about physics and warfare. It learned, it adapted, and it consumed. Their most advanced civilizations, wielding weapons that could reshape reality itself, had failed to even slow it down. In the shadows of the chamber's upper tier, Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth watched silently. Humanity had only joined the Council 3 months ago, and most species still viewed them as primitive curiosities. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so hostile that most Council species would die within minutes of exposure to its natural environment. The fact that humans had evolved there was enough to make many representatives uncomfortable. "The entity's pattern has changed," announced First Scholar Zix, their crystalline form refracting the emergency lights. "It's no longer following energy signatures. It's moving directly toward the core worlds." Sarah stepped forward, her simple environmental suit looking almost primitive compared to the advanced containment fields used by other species. The sound of her boots on the crystal floor made several representatives recoil. Most species levitated to avoid such crude physical contact. "Perhaps," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber, "we've been thinking about this the wrong way." High Chancellor Vexterra turned all 4 of her sensor stalks toward Sarah. "Explain, Ambassador Chen. What could Earth possibly offer against a threat that has defeated civilizations thousands of years more advanced than yours?" Sarah smiled, an expression that still unsettled many Council species. "That's exactly the point, isn't it? You've all been trying to defeat this thing with advanced technology, quantum weapons, gravity manipulation, dimensional shears. And each time, it adapts and grows stronger." She walked to the central platform, bringing up images of Earth. Mountains covered in snow, vast oceans, dense forests, and sprawling deserts. But what about something more fundamental? Something that can't be easily adapted to? "You're not suggesting?" First Scholar Zix's crystalline form vibrated with disbelief. "I am," Sarah confirmed. "You've all evolved beyond what you call primitive warfare. But humans, we still remember. We still know how to fight with kinetic weapons, with explosives, with physical force. The entity adapts to energy signatures and technological patterns. But how does it adapt to a rocket-propelled grenade? To a sniper bullet? To raw physical combat?" The chamber fell silent. The concept was so alien to them that several species had to run it through their translators multiple times to understand. "Barbaric," whispered Representative Call, their gas-based form swirling with agitation. "Effective," Sarah corrected. "You've seen our world. You've seen what we endure daily. Gravity that would crush most of your species. An atmosphere that would corrode your environmental suits. Temperatures that swing from freezing to boiling. We don't survive through technology alone. We survive through adaptation, through physical resilience, through what you might call primitive means." High Chancellor Vexterra's tendrils pulsed with thoughtful light. "You're proposing we use human military forces against an entity that has destroyed civilizations capable of harnessing the power of stars. I'm proposing we show this entity something it's never seen before," Sarah said, her voice firm. "You've all evolved beyond physical combat because you could. Humans? We never had that luxury. Our world forced us to remain strong, to stay tough, to keep our primitive abilities sharp. The entity expects advanced technology. It expects energy weapons and gravity fields. But how does it adapt to pure kinetic force, to explosive compression waves, to physical laws that can't be easily circumvented? The chamber erupted in discussion, thousands of translators working overtime to keep up with the debates. Sarah stood quietly, watching the holographic display of the entity's progress. They didn't understand yet, but they would. Sometimes the most effective solution wasn't the most advanced one. High Chancellor Vexterra raised all four arms for silence. The Council will need to discuss this unexpected proposal. But given the entity's acceleration toward the core worlds, we must decide quickly. She turned to Sarah. How soon could Earth's forces be ready? Sarah's smile returned, wider this time. Chancellor, we've been ready since the day we joined the Council. Humanity has spent its entire history preparing for threats we couldn't imagine. This may be the first time that preparation pays off on a galactic scale. As the chamber erupted in fresh debate, Sarah sent a quick message back to Earth Command. Operation Groundwork is a go. Time to show the galaxy why Deathworlders are the last species you want to underestimate. The red emergency beacons continued to pulse, but now they seemed less like harbingers of doom and more like the prelude to something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity unleashed. The United Earth Defense Force headquarters buzzed with activity. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a bunker that most Council species would consider primitive, General Maya Rodriguez stood before a holographic display of the horizon's end's path of destruction. Unlike the elegant alien projections, this one was built with practical human engineering. Robust, reliable, and most importantly, impossible to hack or adapt to. A delegation of alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their environmental suits. The bunker's conditions, a mere 1G of gravity and standard Earth atmosphere, were already pushing their life support systems to their limits. "This is barbaric," whispered Council observer Angsteth, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. They build their command centers underground, in solid rock. Like survivors, completed Ambassador Chen, standing beside General Rodriguez. "Welcome to how humanity thinks." General Rodriguez gestured to the display. The entity has consumed 17 advanced civilizations. Each time, it adapted to and absorbed their technology. Energy weapons, quantum fields, dimensional manipulation, all useless. She pressed a button, and the display shifted to show something that made several aliens step back in alarm. "This," she continued, "is a Mark 7 kinetic penetrator. No energy signature, no exotic particles, just good old-fashioned tungsten moving at 20 kilometers per second." She smiled. "Try adapting to physics." High Chancellor Vexterra's environmental pod hummed as it processed the concept. "You intend to attack a system-consuming entity with metal projectiles." Among other things, Rodriguez walked to a weapons rack that would have looked at home in any human military base. Railguns, thermobaric explosives, tungsten penetrators, even simple high explosives. The entity adapts to energy patterns and technological signatures, but it's never faced pure kinetic force on this scale. "Impossible," declared First Scholar Zix. "Your ships would never get close enough. The entity's gravitational field alone would." "That's where you come in," interrupted Sarah. "We don't need your weapons. We need your drives, your shields, your FTL systems. We'll provide the punch. You provide the delivery system." The display shifted again, showing a new vessel design that made the alien delegation gasp in what their translators approximated as horror. It was a human warship, brutal and functional, but integrated with alien propulsion and defense systems. "The UED is Hammer of Dawn," Rodriguez announced, "first of her class. No energy weapons, no quantum systems, just railguns, missile pods, and enough kinetic weaponry to shatter a small moon. Built to human military specs, but powered by your technology. You want us to help you build primitive weapons platforms. Angsteth's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. We want you to help us save the galaxy. Sarah corrected. Your civilizations evolved beyond physical combat because you could afford to. Humanity never had that luxury. Earth tried to kill us every day of our evolution. We learned to survive through simple, brutal efficiency. Rodriguez brought up another display, this one showing human special forces training. Soldiers running through mud, climbing mountains, fighting in extreme conditions. The alien delegation watched in fascinated horror. Your species, High Chancellor Vexterra's tendrils pulsed with realization. You still maintain physical combat capabilities, even with all your technology. We never stopped preparing for the worst, Sarah confirmed. Humanity has a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We've spent our entire history preparing for threats we couldn't imagine. Now one is here. The entity has never encountered beings like us, Rodriguez continued. It expects advanced technology because that's all it's ever faced. But humans, we're something else entirely. We're what happens when intelligence evolves on a world that never stopped trying to kill it. The display shifted one final time, showing the full battle plan. Human forces, armed with primitive but devastating weapons, delivered to their targets by the most advanced alien technology. A marriage of brute force and sophisticated delivery. This is insanity, whispered one of the alien observers. That's humanity's secret weapon. Sarah smiled. We're just crazy enough to try what no one else would dare. And we're just tough enough to make it work. High Chancellor Vexterra was silent for a long moment, her tendrils swirling in complex patterns. Finally, she spoke. The Council has authorized this unprecedented cooperation. But tell me, General Rodriguez, what makes you believe your species can succeed where so many advanced civilizations failed? Rodriguez's answer was simple but carried the weight of humanity's entire history. Because we don't know how to give up. We evolved on a death world, survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and our own wars. We crossed our oceans when we could barely build boats. We reached our moon with what you'd consider primitive rockets. We cured diseases by injecting ourselves with weakened versions of them. Everything that makes humanity primitive, by your standards, is exactly what makes us perfect for this fight. She turned to the display, where the red dot of the horizon's end continued its inexorable advance. The entity thinks it's invincible because it can adapt to any technology. Time to show it what happens when it faces something it can't adapt to. Human stubbornness and good old-fashioned kinetic energy. The alien delegation left the bunker that day with a new understanding of why Deathworlders were classified as extreme hazards in the Galactic database, and perhaps, though none would admit it, a glimmer of hope that these crazy primitives might just save them all. The bridge of the UED's Hammer of Dawn thrummed with tension. Captain Elena Santos stood at her command station, watching as the crystalline entity filled the tactical display. Even through the advanced alien sensor systems, it was beautiful in its terrible way. A massive latticework of translucent crystal that had already consumed 3 star systems in this sector alone. Target is holding position in the Arcturus debris field, reported Lieutenant Commander James Chen, his hands dancing over the hybrid human-alien interface. It appears to be digesting the remnants of the Meridian fleet. Elena nodded, her expression grim. The Meridian Empire had been one of the most technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their quantum phase cannons and reality-warping weapons had been useless against the entity. Now they were just more raw material for its endless hunger. All ships report ready, Captain, announced Commander Kira Petal from Tactical. The tactical display showed the full human fleet. 20 ships, each a primitive battering ram by Council standards, but wrapped in the most advanced alien technology ever grafted onto human vessels. Status of alien support vessels? Elena asked, though she could see them on her display, keeping their distance, their crews both fascinated and horrified by what was about to unfold. High Chancellor Vexterra's flotilla is maintaining position at maximum safe distance, Chen reported. They're ready to provide gravitational support and emergency extraction if needed. Elena allowed herself a small smile. The alien allies had been shocked when humanity insisted on having backup plans for their backup plans. They called it pessimistic. Humans called it survival instinct. All ships. This is Captain Santos. She broadcast to the fleet. Operation Sledgehammer is go. Remember your training. Remember Earth. Show this thing why you don't underestimate Deathworlders. The human fleet moved with precision that belied their primitive nature. Alien propulsion systems, guided by human tactical doctrine, brought them into perfect attack formation. The entity, as predicted, began to shift its crystalline structure, preparing for the energy weapons it had faced countless times before. Entity is generating defensive fields, Chen reported. Standard pattern: quantum barriers, gravitational lenses, dimensional shields. Perfect. Elena smiled. It's expecting another technological attack. Weapons, you may fire when ready. Show them what humanity brings to the fight. The first salvo wasn't energy beams or quantum torpedoes. It was something far more basic and far more difficult to adapt to. Railguns on every human ship fired simultaneously, launching specially designed tungsten penetrators at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy alone was equivalent to small nuclear detonations. The entity's defenses, evolved to handle energy weapons and exotic particles, meant nothing against pure kinetic force. The penetrators struck home with devastating effect, shattering massive sections of crystalline structure. Direct hits across all targets, Patil announced, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Entity showing signs of confusion. It's attempting to adapt, but there's nothing to adapt to. Just physics. The entity's response was dramatic. Its structure rippled, trying to absorb or deflect the attack as it had done countless times before. But there was no energy signature to analyze, no technology to copy, just mass, velocity, and unforgiving momentum. Second wave, on my mark, Elena commanded. Load thermobaric warheads. Let's see how it handles good old-fashioned shockwaves in space. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human fleet executed maneuvers that their tactical computers classified as insane but effective. Ships deliberately used debris as cover, fired weapons through gravitational distortions to curve their trajectories, and demonstrated combat doctrine that had been honed through millennia of warfare on Earth. Entity is attempting to retreat, Chen reported. It's never done that before. Wait. Energy spike. It's trying to jump to FTL. Not today, Elena growled. Execute Operation Cage Fight. Show this thing why you don't turn your back on humans. The alien support vessels, following prearranged protocols, activated their most powerful drives in concert. Space itself twisted around the entity, creating a gravitational cage that even it couldn't break free from. Trapped, it could only endure as the human fleet continued their relentless assault. Hours later, in the debris field that had once been the horizon's end, Elena stood before the ship's comm system, broadcasting to both her fleet and the alien observers. Phase 1 is complete, she reported. The entity has been broken into manageable fragments. However, we've confirmed that it's already beginning to regenerate. But now we know something crucial. It can be hurt. It can be stopped. Not by outthinking it, not by outgunning it with advanced technology, but by hitting it with something so basic that there's nothing to adapt to. High Chancellor Vexterra's image appeared on the main screen, her tendrils moving in what Elena had learned to recognize as profound shock. Incredible. In all our simulations, in all our advanced tactical analyses, we never considered such primitive methods could be so effective. That's because you evolved beyond them, Elena explained. You forgot that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. Humanity never had that luxury. We kept all our old instincts, all our old weapons, even as we developed new ones, because Earth taught us one lesson that we never forgot. Always be ready for the unexpected. The tactical display showed the entity's fragments, still trying to reconnect, still trying to adapt to an attack it had never encountered in all its eons of existence. But adaptation required understanding, and there was nothing to understand about kinetic energy and shock waves except their brutal physical reality. This was just the beginning. Elena announced to both human and alien crews, "We've proven our theory. Now comes the hard part, hunting down every fragment before it can regenerate, and showing the galaxy that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one. Sometimes you need a species crazy enough to punch a star-eating crystal in what passes for its face." As her words echoed across space, Elena couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why its inhabitants were the most dangerous survivors in known space. The Galactic Military Academy's Grand Hall had never seen anything quite like this before. Where once holographic displays showed quantum battle formations and energy weapon trajectories, now there stood something far more basic and far more terrifying to most of the alien observers: a human obstacle course. Commander Sarah Chen, now promoted to Earth's chief military liaison, watched as alien military officers attempted to navigate what human Marines considered basic training. Even with their environmental suits and artificial gravity compensators, most struggled with the simple physical challenges. "Again," barked Sergeant Maria Torres, pacing along the course. "Your enemies won't wait for you to calculate the perfect solution. Sometimes you have to act on instinct." High Chancellor Vexterra floated nearby in her environmental pod, her tendrils pulsing with fascination. 3 months ago, this would have been considered barbaric. Now, after your success against the entity, now you're all learning to think like Deathworlders, Sarah completed with a smile. "How are the new hybrid ships coming along?" "Better than expected," Vexterra admitted, though many of our engineers still struggle with the concept of redundant mechanical backup systems. The success of Operation Sledgehammer had sent shockwaves through the galactic community. The entity, while not destroyed, had been severely wounded, something no advanced civilization had managed in centuries of conflict. More importantly, the fragments they'd managed to destroy showed no signs of regeneration. Simple physical destruction, it seemed, was something even the entity couldn't adapt to. On one of the training screens, footage played from the latest engagement. A crystalline fragment had attempted to absorb and adapt to a quantum phase beam from an alien support ship. It succeeded, its structure shifting to perfectly counter the advanced technology. Then a human kinetic strike had shattered it into pieces. There was no adaptation to physics. "Report from the Arcturus sector," announced First Scholar Zix, their crystalline form approaching with unusual haste. "The entity's remaining fragments are behaving differently. They're avoiding confrontation, showing signs of what our analysts can only describe as fear." Sarah nodded. "It makes sense. For the first time in its existence, it's facing something it can't adapt to, something it can't predict or counter. Just pure, brutal physics." Around them, the academy hummed with activity. Alien officers studied human military history, learning lessons from centuries of warfare that their species had long abandoned. The concepts seemed primitive at first: cover and concealment, tactical retreats, the importance of redundancy and backup plans. But as one alien instructor had noted, primitive doesn't mean ineffective. The entity's primary clusters have begun moving away from populated systems, Zix reported, bringing up a tactical display. They appear to be retreating to the galactic rim. "They're not retreating," Sarah corrected. "They're regrouping, trying to understand what hit them. But that's the beauty of our approach. There's nothing to understand. You can't adapt to kinetic energy. You can't evolve past the laws of physics." In the training area, an alien officer finally completed the obstacle course. Their environmental suit was strained, its power systems nearly depleted, but there was something new in their posture: pride. They had accomplished something purely physical, without relying on advanced technology. "We're starting to see interesting modifications to our own military doctrine," Vexterra observed. "Some of our younger officers are suggesting hybrid approaches, combining our advanced technology with what they're calling human practical warfare. Sarah watched as more alien officers tackled the course, each learning the hard lessons that humanity had never forgotten. That's the key, isn't it? Not abandoning advanced technology, but remembering the basics, keeping those primitive survival instincts sharp. A new alert flashed across the tactical displays. Another entity fragment had been destroyed, this time by a joint human-alien task force. The alien ships had contained and trapped it with their advanced fields, while human vessels delivered the killing blow with simple kinetic weapons. "We've identified 3 more major fragments," Zix announced. "They're attempting to hide in asteroid fields, using the natural debris as cover." Their crystalline form vibrated with what might have been amusement. They're learning primitive tactics. Too late, Sarah smiled. They're learning to fear physical damage, but that's all they can do. They can't adapt to it, can't evolve past it. And now they're facing an entire galaxy that's remembering its primitive roots. In the training hall, Sergeant Torres was introducing the alien officers to another human concept: hand-to-hand combat. Most species found it horrifying at first, the idea of physical contact in battle. But as humanity had proven against the entity, sometimes the most primitive solution was the most effective. "To think," Vexterra mused, "we once considered your species barely civilized because you maintained physical combat capabilities. Now those same capabilities might save the galaxy." "Humanity never forgot where we came from," Sarah replied, watching as more alien officers joined the training. "Earth taught us to keep all our tools sharp, from the most advanced to the most basic, because you never know which one you'll need to survive." The tactical display updated again, showing more entity fragments changing course, retreating from systems they once would have consumed without hesitation. They had learned something that the galaxy was just beginning to understand. Sometimes the simplest approach was the most devastating, and humanity was teaching that lesson one kinetic strike at a time. The galactic core blazed with the light of 1,000 suns, its brilliance matched only by the crystalline fragments of the entity that had taken refuge there. After months of pursuit, the remaining pieces of the horizon's end had gathered in the one place they thought they'd be safe, where the sheer gravitational forces and radiation would make combat impossible. They hadn't counted on human ingenuity. The bridge of the UED's Hammer of Dawn was eerily quiet as Captain Elena Santos studied the tactical display. The combined human-alien fleet surrounded the core in a complex 3-dimensional formation that would have been impossible just months ago. Alien ships provided gravitational shields and space-time stabilization, while human vessels waited with their primitive weapons primed. "Entity fragments are attempting to communicate," announced Lieutenant Commander Chen. "They're broadcasting across all frequencies." "Let's hear it," Elena ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with a sound that made several alien crew members recoil, a crystalline screech that their translators struggled to process. "Why do you know adapt? Why can we know tpredict?" Elena smiled. It was the first time the entity had ever attempted communication. Fear, it seemed, was a universal teacher. "Because we're human," she replied simply. "We don't follow your rules of adaptation. We make our own." The tactical display showed the entity fragments shifting, trying to form new patterns. They had learned to fear kinetic weapons, but their very nature demanded they try to find a solution, to adapt, to evolve. It was a futile effort against the laws of physics themselves. High Chancellor Vexterra's image appeared on the main screen, her tendrils moving with determination. "All Allied ships report ready, Captain Santos. The gravitational containment field is charged. Operation Final Strike awaits your command." Elena nodded, remembering the months of preparation that had led to this moment. The galaxy had changed. Species that once looked down on primitive combat now trained alongside humans. Advanced civilizations had rediscovered their basic survival instincts, and humanity had proven that sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. "All ships, this is Captain Santos," she broadcast to the fleet. "You know the plan. It's simple. It's brutal, and it's exactly what the entity can't adapt to. Execute Operation Final Strike. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Alien vessels used their advanced technology to create a massive gravitational cage around the core, trapping the entity fragments in a sphere of contained spacetime. Human ships moved in precise formations, their crews protected by a combination of their natural resilience and alien shielding technology. Entity fragments attempting to combine, Chen reported. They're trying to reform into a single mass. Perfect. Elena smiled. They're doing exactly what we predicted. Basic survival instinct, strength in unity. Too bad they didn't study human history more carefully. Fire the NOVA charges. From strategic points around the containment sphere, human ships launched what looked like primitive nuclear weapons. The entity's fragments shifted, preparing to adapt to the radiation and energy release they expected. Instead, the charges detonated in a carefully calculated pattern, creating a cascade of shock waves that rippled through space itself. The entity had no defense against pure kinetic force multiplied by the gravitational lens effect of the core. Its fragments, caught in the convergence of multiple shock waves, began to shatter. Not into larger pieces that could regenerate, but into atomic dust. Chain reaction initiated. Patel announced from Tactical. The gravitational forces are multiplying the effect. Entity fragments are. They're disintegrating. The entity's final message echoed across space. Impossible. You are primitive. You should not be able to. The transmission cut off as the last fragments dissolved into cosmic dust. The combined fleet held position, watching as the remnants of the galaxy's greatest threat were drawn into the core's gravitational well, forever becoming part of the stars themselves. Hours later, in the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, Elena stood beside High Chancellor Vextara as they addressed the assembled species. The chamber, once filled with fear, now hummed with a new energy. The entity is no more, Vextara announced, her tendrils glowing with pride. And we have learned perhaps the most important lesson in our history. That advancement does not always mean abandoning our origins. Elena stepped forward, her simple uniform standing out among the elaborate environmental suits and containment pods. Humanity joined this council as newcomers, seen as primitives from a death world. Today, we stand as equals, having proved that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. We didn't defeat the entity with superior technology. We defeated it with physics, determination, and the survival instincts that Earth taught us never to forget. The chamber erupted in what each species considered applause. Representatives from civilizations that had once looked down on humanity now studied them with new respect. They had learned what the entity learned too late, that true advancement meant keeping all your tools sharp, from the most advanced to the most basic. As the celebration continued, Elena received a message from Earth Command. New ships were being built, combining human resilience with alien technology. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where species remembered their roots even as they reached for the stars. You know, Elena said to Vextara, there's an old human saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The High Chancellor's tendrils moved in what had become recognizable as a smile. Perhaps that is the greatest wisdom of all, to remember where we came from, even as we decide where we're going. In the vast darkness of space, the galactic core continued to shine, now glittering with the remnants of an entity that had learned too late. Never underestimate a species that remembers its primitive roots, especially when those roots grew in the unforgiving soil of a death world called Earth.